Our first guest is a high school history teacher with 25 years experience in the classroom. Kurt Russell was named the 2022 National Teacher of the Year. Welcome. Do your students call you Mr. Russell?
Thank you so much. And yes, that's totally fine. Thank you
Okay,
so much
Mr.
for having
Russell.
me.
Yes, thank you for being with us. So we know that students are struggling after the early months of the pandemic, and we know that schools are struggling with a teacher shortage. So what is the reality right now inside classrooms like yours?
Well, thank you so much for that question. And once again, thank you so much for having me. In my classroom, we are learning, we are growing, we are having tough conversations. And it's because kids are involved and that engagement is happening each and every day in my classroom because I give my students a opportunity to share their voice and to elevate their voices. And I think that's key in order for us to make sure that we progress educationally with all of our students.
You're in Ohio. There was a bill introduced in your state this year that would ban certain ways for you to teach about American history, including slavery. We're talking about things like the 1619 Project and diversity outcomes. Those are included. I understand that you teach an elective unit on oppression, which includes lessons on the Black Lives Matter movement. So how will that bill's passage impact you?
Well, I think when I started teaching, I made a promise to myself and to my students. And that promise was to make sure I give them the best educational opportunities I could afford them. And as a history teacher, the only way in which I can do so is by giving them the actual information. I do not sugarcoat what I teach, but what I try to do is to give them a framework in order for my kids to use and for them to formulate their own discussions and their own opinions.
Is that controversial?
For some, but not for my students. My students don't see it as controversial. My students see it as engagement. My students see it as reality. My students see it as an opportunity for us as a community of learners to grow together.
Well, we've been talking already about the dissatisfaction that some parents have with their children's K through 12 education. But Mr. Russell, a Merrimack College teacher survey shows that teachers' job satisfaction is now at an all-time low, and only 12% say they are very satisfied. That's a drop from 39% just a decade ago. Can you give us some insight into why?
Yes, I think the main reason is that a lot of times teachers are not considered experts in the classroom. When there are policies being made, teachers are not necessarily at the table. And I think that takes away from our thrill, it takes away from our engagement within education. By teachers not being a part of making policies, it really shows the lack of respect that teachers have.
Well, Mr. Russell, you have a platform as National Teacher of the Year. So what is the most important message you want people to hear right now?
The most important thing as a teacher, I would like to make sure that students see themselves in the classroom to diversify the curriculum and also to diversify faculty and staff. And if we can do that, I believe we can grow as a profession.
All right. Thank you so much, Kurt Russell. We appreciate your time.